The problem is this is a product that is engineered for daily foundational use. It's not a cup of coffee where you drink it and you go, oh, I'm setting my world on fire. It is like eating healthy, like working out. The more consistently you do it, the more the benefits.
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Kat Cole, CEO of AG1. In this episode, we discuss AG1's evolution from a single product DTC brand into a multi-product, multi-channel platform. Plus, we talk about launching new flavors, expanding into retail, and how AG1 is building the future of daily foundational nutrition. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider Podcast is presented by EGYM. EGYM's smart fitness ecosystem is transforming healthcare through exercise. Combining strength equipment with AI-powered software and corporate wellness platform WellPass, it's leading the shift to proactive preventative health. Learn more about EGYM's intelligent workout solutions at egym.com. Hi, Kat. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Excited to chat today. A lot going on in the broader, we were just talking offline a little bit about the supplement space. Certainly AG1, a brand that folks and listeners know and are super familiar with. And I think just to kick things off, maybe could you give us the State of the Union, might not be the right word, but just the kind of high level update on AG1, you not that long ago stepping into the CEO role, and just where things are today and how you're thinking about the brand.
Yeah, I stepped in, I guess it was fall of 2021 after advising the company for over half a year and after having been a customer for 2 years. So I feel like it was a long on-ramp. And at the time that I joined, we had done 160 million in revenue, growing by multiples, not percent, in the years leading up to that. Not profitable at that time with that amount of growth, single product, single channel. And in the 4 years since, we have evolved meaningfully and fairly quickly. One, continued growth. Two, a shift to profitability. We've been profitable over the last few years, moving from single product, single channel to multi-product, multi-channel, continuing to upgrade the core hero product AG1's formula, as we have many times over 15 years, kind of like Tesla, iPhone, just make that one thing that's very complex even better over time for the customer. And really taking the time over those 4 years to hit critical milestones of investment and capability building needed to unlock the next milestone. So at first that was, we were only blended in New Zealand and we were growing mostly in the US, and we needed to bring blending to the US, which we did over 3 years ago. And then once we had that supply chain shored up, seeing where the consumer was going and building a much larger team 3 years ago of PhDs, relationships with universities and academic institutions and laboratories to do more human testing for the supplement industry, which is pretty rare. So we had to build the team for that. Then scoping those initial pilot studies and bodies of research to just bring more proof to the supplement space, and certainly for a premium product. Once we did that, it was time to upgrade the formula, because now that capability allowed us to blend with more redundancy, have less risk, have an increased bar and level of scientific rigor around the improvements we would make in the formula. So we did that in 2023 and 24. That we decided was the moment we would bring flavors for the first time. AG1's also been only one flavor for over a decade, which is pretty wild for a consumable product of this scale. And so we upgraded the team, upgraded the supply chain, upgraded the formula as a pattern of doing that, and then launched flavors. So now we have a variety of flavors on an upgraded formula, produced the results of 4 double-blind randomized placebo-controlled human trials. So now added clinical rigor. And then on that basis, decided we had shored up the capabilities enough to bridge into other channels and compete on shelf and compete in other marketplaces. So we expanded to Amazon and direct to national with Costco, and launched AGZ, our first ever true second hero product, using the same philosophies and approach as we did with AG1. AG1 was combining what people were doing already to make it simpler, more effective, higher quality, and really simpler to build a routine around. So people were already taking a multivitamin, already taking a probiotic, already taking, call it a greens powder or a superfood powder. And we combined those. So the routine could be more simple, there would be higher adherence. Higher adherence equals better outcomes, of course, if people are more consistent. We did the same thing with AGZ. It was very clear over the last few years, people were starting to stack magnesiums, different types of magnesium, in particular L-threonate and biglycinate, herbal blends, whether it's ashwagandha, L-theanine, chamomile, epigenin, right? This type of thing, the sleepy girl tea and cocktail, and then certain amino acids, whether it's a glycine or things like myo-inositol. So we saw the same pattern, huge health pillar, clear solutions that you can consume that are helpful. They're not all the answer, but they're helpful, and a real opportunity to consolidate, bundle, combine them into a simple, efficacious step. So now we have AG1, AG1 Next Gen, multiple flavors, AGZ in multiple flavors, and AG1 on our site, Amazon, Costco, and a couple of big ones to come this year.
For a brand, and we'll talk about marketing more specifically, but just like kind of known for dominating in the podcast space and then doing the rebranding to the AG1 and but really it was all the behind the scenes stuff, the blending, the formulation, the R&D. Like when you're thinking about making this transition, you get into the CEO role, was it around that? Like, hey, we have to check all these boxes before we can even get to the place where growth is even on the table, and working behind the scenes while laying the foundation for all of the kind of forward facing things to come. Yeah, just kind of what went into that, and whether it was the roadmap or KPIs that okay, this is where we want to go, but really it's going to be all the things behind the scenes that are going to get us there.
At least for me, stepping into the company, I come from a background in industries where multi-channel, when I say multi-SKU, right, thousands of SKUs, multiple brands was the playbook. So certainly there was an understanding and a belief that I would be able to bring those capabilities to this company to some degree eventually. And so reaching customers with a few different evolutions of product was the plan all along, even though we've been very rewarded for our focus doing one thing incredibly well. Moving beyond D2C exclusively into brick and mortar retail was always an eventual reality, because still a majority of purchases in consumer and in this category happen in those locations. So if we didn't go there, we're giving up on many customers who might have the problems that our product solves. So it's one of these where you go, it was always the plan. We knew eventually at some point, but the question is when and why, and when and why now to that when, and do we have as many of the capabilities as possible to make that next leap very successful. And many brands start out multi-channel, many brands start out multi-product. So it's not that launching a second hero SKU or going into your first retailer is some unique thing, but waiting to do it until you're 15 years into your business and you're already at hundreds of millions in annual profitable revenue. That's what's different, because you've got this big, beautiful, known, established, functioning machine and community and relationship. And now going into a new product or a new channel has a big thing that it could affect. So it does take a lot of thought and consideration. So it was always the plan, but it takes a lot of thought and consideration, given we've gotten pretty big without it. But what I didn't know, so that's what I knew, even in advising the company, I knew that was the plan. I knew I was coming to bring that plan to life eventually, but not immediately. What I didn't know until I got into the company is a good bit of that operating foundation that would need to be shored up just to keep up with the growth we had in the channel we had. So we were growing the year prior, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was well over 100% year over year growth. That year we did 160 million. And then the year after, very similar. And when you're growing that quickly on that kind of a base and you're only manufactured in one place in New Zealand, you got bigger problems than when you're going to launch a flavor. It's just a high risk profile, right? If something happened in that plant, I have no alternative readily available to supply my subscribers, much less keep growing with new customers. So once I got in, it was very clear that the growth alone that was showing no signs of stopping anytime soon, even that had some long overdue upgrades in the operating model. again, supply chain blending, additional QA for that growth in blending, moving the blending facilities to the countries where the product is distributed. We were already in multiple countries, but the US was the dominant market, still is. So that was just like staring into the sun. You want to make a new thing, you want to go into a retailer, but you kind of have no business doing that when you are barely keeping up with the demand in your current channel. So that is the contrast I would give of what we wanted to do, what we always knew we would do, and why we needed to look 1 foot in front of us instead of so far out. And so think of that as tier one operating capability, even stronger supply chain team, multiple nodes of production, redundancy, reducing risk. What that also did was dropped some of our risk around last mile distribution. We were able to get product to customers faster and shorten our delivery times and improve our customer experience. If you blend in the US and you ship in the US, it's all faster, it's all better. So that might not sound sexy or very brandy or marketing, but it is absolutely required to keep up with just the growth that we had. So in my mind, I felt we had not earned the right. We had not built the right to go doing new and different things until we had shored up these capabilities. I also saw just some issues we had with the customer experience. We were growing so quickly coming out of COVID. Many people listening will remember there was a supply chain crisis during COVID. Like the ports were all backed up. And so anything you had that was a physical good, for us, that's shaker bottles, canisters, scoops, lids, you were having to find multiple alternate suppliers, real time, multiple alternate suppliers, just to supply your existing business. And when we did that, we had problems. Like we had to find a secondary lid supplier, and the lid they produced, we thought it was perfect, but turns out it was like the tiniest bit off in the threading. And then when I joined the company, we've got thousands of complaints a week from leaky shaker bottles. But we're growing so quickly, it wasn't one of those things that you would automatically notice. Like strong growth, strong revenue trends hide a lot of underlying problems. And as part of just how I jump into companies, spend a lot of time on the phone with customers, spend time with the customer happiness team. And all of a sudden you see this like shaker bottle replacement. Like, what's going on? And you realize it's leaking, and it's not one, it's thousands. And yet no one was making it a fire that it actually was. And so that's a tiny example of just the little cracks that start to happen when you're growing that fast without shoring up the capabilities and just trying to meet demand. So those are the little signals that you need to breathe a little before you stack on complexity, even if it's not a lot of complexity, any complexity to a company.
I think that's all super helpful for anybody that's, whether a small or large company, thinking about, hey, how do we kind of get to that next level, and making sure that you have that strong kind of foundation at these different tiers to build on as you describe it. There's also this knowing that you want to grow, the kind of expectation, and when the timing's right, we'll get there. Going from this known entity that is also doing hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, then like, what does real growth look like? Whether it's channels and products or global, all these different things, that is A, worth it, right, to continue to push through, but B, that doesn't compromise or put at risk like what you already have, because it is an established thing. Were there a lot of those trade-offs? Are there now, in terms of thinking, hey, we could do that, but is it going to move the needle for us where we're already kind of like doing these things extremely well and seeing the trends in growth? So there is what you could do versus like what's actually valuable for real growth and impact.
Yeah, one example is we had the opportunity to go into direct to national retail much sooner than we did. And the fly on the wall experience would be seeing us say, okay, we know we want to reach those customers. We're not sure how many people would prefer to buy from retail, which will often have a different pack architecture. So it might be a lower piece count. It might be more expensive per ounce. You have a lot more layers of cost and process in a retail relationship than in a direct relationship with the customer. So what does that mean for the pricing structure? And then even portion size. We thought, okay, maybe a retailer might want a lower unit count at that point just so it's a less sticker shock, lower ring, drive trial. The problem is this is a product that is engineered for daily foundational use. It's not it's not a cup of coffee where you drink it and you go, "Oh, I'm setting my world on fire." It is like eating healthy, like working out. The more consistently you do it, the more the benefits. And all of the peer-reviewed research on our ingredients on our product are done from consistent daily use. So if you just sell a single stick pack in a grab and go in a retailer, is that customer ever going to get that experience? So those are the conversations we have around what is best for someone to truly appreciate what this is and have the incentives to really have a consistent health habit of this daily health drink in a way that they will feel the benefits that the research reflects and says many should have and feel. And so those are the debates. Should we do that? It could bring exposure. It could give us scale. It could bring revenue, but it could also give customers an unimpressive experience of just having one vitamin one day, one multivitamin, one probiotic dose, and then thinking, it didn't do anything for me. So it may seem silly, but those are serious considerations when you are committed, when you have the mission we do, which is empower health ownership, have daily foundational nutrition products that support nutrients and gut health, and they're engineered to complement food as a safe, effective daily product. And so just one-offing it has limited value. What it would offer is taste sampling, right? People can at least say, well, what does it taste like? Like I know I can't just drink it once and, grow a crown, but I'm afraid of the taste, or it's green, or I'm not sure. So we knew there were opportunities to get in front of customers separate of community and activations, but in retail. And those were the debates. What is the customer experience? What is the customer value? And how does that reflect on what the customers who know AG1 already know, love, and appreciate? Then we had to build the capability of, well, we're D2C. We can communicate on Instagram and X and LinkedIn and through partners. And so people come to our site fairly warm, fairly informed. When you're on a shelf, that package has to do a very different job for first time customers, first time interaction. Our package is beautiful, but it was built for D2C. So packaging design, what we need to communicate, how we communicate that, we just recognized that was a body of work we had not nailed. And so we decided not to go in retail 2 years prior to when we actually did. The other piece was recognizing we were in the middle of upgrading our formula. We had been growing so fast that our regular cadence of upgrading the formula every 2 to 4 years had slowed down because we were just trying to keep up with demand for that version of the formula at that point. And it was long overdue. And so we were right in the middle of the human trials on the new formula, proving out, covering nutrient gaps, proving out the gut health benefits. And so we didn't want to put something in retail before we knew what that next generation was going to look like, what it was going to be, how it was going to be tolerated. We do massive diary studies with customers whenever we upgrade the formula just to see how they tolerate it, how does it change, even if it's got a minimal shift in its profile. And so it's a long, expensive, sometimes painful process because you just want to get it out and talk about it and brag about it and have people know that you continue this commitment to continuous improvement. But we held up retail for it. We held up launching the product for that level of research. So those are the real operating activities and trade-offs. We're trading off revenue sooner. We're trading off channel expansion sooner for quality of experience and protecting what the brand stands for in the marketplace. We had an opportunity to launch AGZ much sooner into retail, but one of the ingredients we wanted to put in it that the research supports, it's incredible, we could not get NSF for Sport certified. And one of our commitments is our hero products will be NSF for Sport certified, not made in an NSF facility, NSF for Sport certified. Every batch, third-party tested. It's a super high bar of safety and quality. And so it delayed our launch because we had to reformulate because this one ingredient would not be certified for sport. And so those are the type of trade-offs we make, which is often time and money, in order to deliver something that is consistent, with our brand quality and promise. It is painful sometimes.
This episode of the Fitt Insider Podcast is brought to you by EGYM. EGYM makes some of the most innovative strength training machines on the market, but that's only one part of their integrated ecosystem. With connected fitness equipment, AI-powered gym software, and a comprehensive corporate wellness offering, it's forging the future of preventative health. Partnering with companies worldwide, EGYM's WellPass program improves employee health by expanding access to premier fitness and health facilities. Upgrading gym floors, EGYM equips every operator with smart equipment and AI tools to create hyper-personalized training plans for every exerciser. Putting it all together, they're transforming healthcare through exercise. Experience the power of EGYM's ecosystem at egym.com. All the things you're speaking to are kind of fit into this. A lot of times you and I've talked to on the podcast a number of companies that have started D2C, started with maybe a subscription, and now think about expanding into retail. And there are those trade-offs. And part of it goes to, maintaining kind of ownership of that relationship with the consumer. Like you said, the messaging, the experience, the consistency, like having that play out over time. And some of it is frankly, like you just have like the switching is so easy sometimes for consumers. Skepticism is very high. There's credibility, research, a lot of things you're talking about. In terms of like overcoming that bar, what has gone into investments in research, scientific advisory, clinical trials, just AG1, you have to confront this from the green powder and does it work and what are the impacts? But even broadly in the supplement space,
Totally.
as consumers get more and more knowledgeable, it's just like, hey, is this working? And how do I know? And it's incumbent upon brands to kind of prove that.
Yeah. All of this research that we do, there's two reasons to do it, right? One reason to do it is truly to drive how you formulate. What ingredients are researched to do what thing? And when you put them together, what does the research say they also do? And that drives formulation. The other reason to invest in research and clinical trials and a scientific advisory board and partnerships with UC Davis, partnerships with UPenn, the list is very long for us. The other reason to do that is what you described, which is the growing challenge and confusion in the category, which is a reflection of how fast the demand is growing, right? You get a lot of people wanting to claim territory, either territory of expertise, share of wallet, and that rush into the category creates all kinds of confusion. Add to it just the general lack of trust in institutions, the prevalence of misinformation, and having it be very hard to know what to believe. That is the second reason we make these investments. And it was well over 10 million over the last few years, and we committed another 20 million into research over just the next 3 years, into human trials, nutrition and gut health research, sleep research. And I'm not counting like headcount in that, right? This is like money put to work for the things. And we're nowhere near close to where we're going to be in a few years. I think if I look at any multi-ingredient supplement out there, I don't know any that have more completed human trials, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled human trials that prove benefit than we do. We have 5 on a single product. We have 5 on a single product. That took years and millions, and we couldn't talk about it while it was happening. And then when it's done, you have to wait for it to be analyzed by a third party. One of our human trials was triple blind, not double blind. So even the analysts don't know, because we know that there's such skepticism. So you take those extra layers, you're placebo controlling it. Why? Because people think it's placebo. You're randomizing it. Why? Because people think it's biased. You're triple blinding it. Why? Because people say, well, the analyst knew it was AG1. And that just adds cost. Then the way to keep raising the bar, which we have done, is growing numbers of participants in human trials. The way human trials work is you need a certain, based on what you are looking for, and you can't look for everything in a human trial, you're scoping a specific thing. We're looking for the increase in these beneficial bacteria in the gut. We are looking for vitamins, these vitamins in blood serum levels. We take your blood before you drink AG1. We take it when you drink AG1. We take it after. you can't run the world when you're doing a proper randomized placebo-controlled human trial, right? The more you're looking for, the larger the number has to be and the more complex the infrastructure is. And while we are leading the industry in human trials in the supplement space, we're not pharma. So it's a different bar, and it's a different risk profile of those products as well. So for us, it's how can we get larger studies, even if it's not the number required for statistical significance, because often that number is quite low. You can have 30 people, 40 people, and get to an R squared, like get to an outcome that is statistically significant by scientific standards. But if you're an average customer, it's easy to go 30 people. That's not a lot of people. So then we go, okay, even though you only need 30 for a statistically relevant outcome for a human clinical trial, we are going to do 100. Why? 100 is better than 30. It gives us more diversity of population. It also allows us to ensure we have more types of people in our studies. And so we'll keep doing that. So we committed another 20 million, launched a partnership with UC Davis, launched a partnership with their institute and their tool, PIPA, an AI tool to understand all of the mapping of nutraceuticals and biology and opportunity. And that's not going to go on a billboard, right? Like that's not going to get anyone excited in the world of marketing in the near term. That's money going in today for research, for understanding, for formulation, and yes, in some cases for proof that eventually 18 to 24 months after studies are concluded and analyzed and making their way through conferences and abstracts are produced, then we can talk about it. And in some cases, I'm already on to the next iteration of the formula, which means I'm going to have to do completely new human trials anyway. That's why a lot of companies don't do it. This is why they don't do it. But we must, right? We're one of the largest in the space. As you said, there's a ton of criticism. And the only answer for that is a growing body of proof. Now, not everyone wants to read the long version of the proof, but that is the answer, is the real like heads down scientific rigor. Use the confusion in the space to help us continually be better, push ourselves for more. We're okay to be the tip of the spear, right? It means you're the leader, but we hold ourselves to an incredibly high standard to keep raising the bar. And in the industry, as you said, the bar's pretty low. But if anyone takes the time to look at our site, look at our science page, they'll see we actually have more research and clinical rigor than almost any other multi-ingredient supplement out there. But it doesn't mean it's enough, right? We'll just keep going. The hard part for me as a leader is it's a lot of money, right? It's tens of millions I've added up just on the research commitments, trials, and you don't get as much credit for it as you would hope. And you could do a lot with that money. You could do a Super Bowl commercial with that money. You could go hire a gazillion people with that money, but we choose to put it there. I could market more with that money in any way. And we choose to put it there because it is required, because it's where I believe the consumer, including busy moms like me who are still confused by the space because I'm being marketed to so much, it is what is required to maintain a leadership position of a premium product in a growing category. And it's also required because we don't make a lot of things, but the few things we make combine many things people are already taking. And instead of just relying on the research of those individual inputs, we believe when you put multiple things together, it is responsible to add layers of research on consuming the whole thing and keep going, right? We'll just keep going.
There, all those things as you're listing them off, and the millions of dollars being spent and the various certifications and R&D, it's like, and you mentioned it, on one hand, it's like, this is not just an AG1 specific benefit. It does raise the expectation for consumers, for other companies, and does raise the bar. But then even with that, you still face criticism, whether that's for the formulation, for the trials, for the different marketing tactics, whether it's affiliates or influencers. How do you just like respond to that, whether it's personally or culturally? Because there is the response that you will have publicly, which is look at the research, we do all the work, like here it is. But does that weigh on you or the team more broadly to be like, how do we respond to this internally? What does this mean? Like, and how do we continue to like face this challenge, which will always be there because you are kind of proving it out in the space and growing and, continuing to make money and scale?
I think many people in the market see this, certainly our team members. Often, if you talk about bodies of criticism, it is often coming from people promoting their own products as well. And so most of our team or most people in business see things for what they are, right? There's a fighter brand or someone who's an upstart competitor or who wants to position their product that way. And jumping in where there is already energy, traction, investment, search is a strategy and a pretty common one. And so that is what it is in the space. So, like, welcome to being the leader of any industry or category. The next is many of our team members have come from companies that were leaders in their industry as well. You think of Apple or Lululemon or Tesla, you could list a number of brands that are leaders in category, that are indisputed leaders, have incredibly high quality products, and you don't have to look very far to see critique, criticism, whatever it might be. But I do think, to your point, the supplement industry adds a layer to that. So that's how we navigate it. And then we focus on our customer and being bigger than the noise and recognizing signal versus noise, right? When you see a pattern of critique, sometimes there's an opportunity to go, wow, there is something people are fearing. It's often fear. And then you have algorithm driven, whatever you want to call it, rage baiting, right? That's the algorithm rewards it. So there's a reason creators and influencers and people do what they do, because it gets clicks and it gets eyeballs, and sensationalism is rewarded on social media. And so you kind of take that for what it is. But occasionally you go, there's a theme there of something we need to communicate better, something we need to show better. I remember there was something a few years ago about vitamins and minerals in the product, and that the amounts weren't listed. And I'm like, but they are. They're literally it's the whole top of the label. And it became this thing. And I was like, is it just because the label is tiny? Because there's so many things, like when you look at it, it's just small. And so we're like, okay, what is that an opportunity to do? First and foremost, for our customers, it inspired us to do these big blow up versions of the label and the ingredients and the research and send it to them. And then that inspired more of our external storytelling on our ingredients and the amounts and the research backed benefits. And so we try to use, when there's a real theme, we try to use it to listen and make us better and help us on our own, in our own way, speak to the people who matter, not to the people who are going to drive like spin and fear and hype no matter what. Like, those people are always going to do that. And their fans are always going to love what they say. And they're never going to take the time to look on someone's site to see the long detail. But you can learn from it and go, there's something there. And maybe it's a thing we need to do better, or it's a new concern in the category. And we actually are still the best and the leader, but no one knows that because we haven't talked about it. It wasn't a problem before. It wasn't a thing before. Now it is. Now we need to talk about our approach. And much of that has shifted our marketing. And our marketing, we pulled back marketing a few years ago, in part to shift, like to redeploy dollars into a lot of this research and an evolution of the business and the strategy. And then when we came out of that and went back on with far more intense and focused marketing, the marketing was about the science. We actually did billboards that said something like, please control your double-blind randomized placebo-controlled health drink. And our CMO came up with this incredible phrase that tied science and taste. And because we had both human clinical trials that had been announced that proved many benefits, and we launched flavors. So we just said, maybe we should market less vibes and less fun and more science. We have the goods. We just need to talk about it in a way that a billboard, a social post, and a print ad can be intriguing, if not entertaining. And so we leaned into marketing science as a strategy a few years ago. And then we did like a set of NIL deals, but they weren't NIL with athletes. It was NIL with nutrition students at college. Like, we actually did NIL deals. We sponsored the student, but not because they were a famous athlete, because they were in nutrition and health in college. And then we did a featured series with little kids breaking down the science of AG1, almost like a 5-year-old. Like, it's this simple why our bodies need nutrients and gut health support. And it's this simple what AG1 does. And we evolved, you brought it up earlier, our scientific advisory council to have deep, deep researchers in areas of science, nutrition, and health that are relevant to what we make. But these are people who aren't podcasters and they're not creators, right? They're just the people doing the work. So we're supporting their work and they're supporting us and they're weighing in on what we create and they're helping us shape our future roadmap of research and innovation. So it's all of that. So, in one way you could say, well, some of the critiques really help you get better in a lot of ways, as long as you know how to pay attention to real themes, pull out signal versus noise, and recognize there's a lot of human and, in this particular instance, internet dynamics underneath this stuff that you can't snap your fingers and change and make better. You have to navigate this world and use it to make your business better, delight your customers, raise the standard in your space, and be bigger than the noise.
Maybe a couple more quick ones before we wrap up. And one being, you talked about marketing a bit there, and there's obviously, a lot of focus in the past that's been paid on AG1 and podcasts and influencers and really being a leader in that space. And so I don't want to delve too much into that, but just building on that, is there a channel or tactic now that you think of as like maybe underpriced attention or you're experimenting with or high impact that like, you're like, oh, I think this could be something?
Yeah, it's interesting. We do get a lot of credit for podcasts. We were early, and we were fortunate that some of our early fans and drinkers became famous creators. And we only work with people who are authentic AG1 drinkers. And hopefully that authenticity comes through in little comments they make, just because of the space. It's been our approach from the beginning. But we like double down and triple check now as people bring that into question, understandably, because when we got started with podcasts, it wasn't as big of a thing for brands as it is now. And so we were celebrated for it in the early days. Good for you. You're supporting these creators. They work hard. They build their communities. Other brands are taking advantage of them. You really step up for your creators. And then as so many brands flooded into the space, and all of us as listeners are like, I can't tell what to believe. I don't know if they're saying that because they're paid or because they believe it. Look, the reality is both can be true. You can pay for advertising, of which any type of advertising is paid marketing, or most types, and someone can actually be a fan of the product. And you hope you work with people who, like some of the podcasters we work with, they have their pick of brands they could work with. And there's a lot they say no to, but they say yes. They say yes to the ones that they believe in. I think about Hugh Jackman, who we just announced as a global ambassador. He's been drinking AG1 for 5 years. That is how we approach. However, that's how we approach those relationships. However, it is a minority of our marketing driver for customers. It is not anywhere close to a majority. So we're good at it. We were early. In some ways, we're omnipresent amongst some of the largest podcasts because we get the space, we know it, and we match up with people who we have aligned, an aligned view and a real belief in their platform or their approach and their community, and they believe in our product. And so that's a good match. But the two that for years have been the highest combined contributors are referral. So finding a way to make sure existing customers recommending your product is easy. Still, friends and family, number one way people say they heard about us. Podcast is up there, but friends and family is toppity top. And that's one, right, is in making sure your CX, and it's not this old school referral, like recommend someone and you get $15. That's actually, we used to have that. A lot of D2C companies have that reward for referral. What we learned from our research is that felt kind of weird. It's a premium product. It's an ingestible. You don't know if it's good for someone else. You don't want to recommend it. Getting money for it's weird. So we realized that's not the answer. What the answer was for us is enabling existing customers to gift AG1. And then those people, it's a very high conversion rate, I will tell you. And so they have a good experience. They decide on their own. Because of all the confusion in the space, nothing converts higher than a personal recommendation. Nothing. So any way we can enable that, we've been working on, and we still have so much more we can and should and must be doing. The other channel isn't a specific channel, but I would say the integration of channels, right? Bringing through linear and streaming with print and community activation. there is something about getting that calculus right, those puzzle pieces together, that if you are properly targeting customers, real people who are very likely to appreciate what you do and be in consideration, there's something about that wrapper of, I saw an Instagram post, but I read this, there was this, I opened up the paper while I was, I'm a business traveler, and I happened to open up a magazine or a paper, and I see an ad, or I'm an athlete. I opened up Outside Magazine and there's a runner's ad. And then, oh, my friend gifted me some. Love it. Right. It's a multi-touch model that works. I haven't found one home run channel for a product like ours. Premium price, subscription, daily consumption habit. It's highly considered as a purchase. So multiple touches and those type of channels working together seem to really be working for us. And so we keep evolving the mix of those, right? A little more TV at one point, a little more print at one point, a little more community activation, depending on, are we launching a new product or is it evergreen kind of science messaging? But we keep toggling and working with that mix, because some combination of those things seems to cut through. The other piece, though, is retail, right? Because retail is a billboard, and they may buy it there and try it there, or they may see it for the first time walking through a retail location. At Costco, when we went direct to national, there were a significant number of Costco customers who had never heard of us. That's a huge opportunity. I'll talk to some people that go, oh, everyone knows AG1. No, everyone in this group. But you talk to someone over here and they're like, what's that? So we just have it's crazy that we've gotten to this scale, over $500 million in annual sales, profitable multiple years in a row. We've gotten to this scale with still a huge amount of untapped opportunity and just awareness, which is why retail, which is why evolving the marketing mix, which is why invest in science for the future, because you still have a lot of future opportunity we really need to prime.
It is funny being, as you can imagine, the health and fitness guy across my broader family over the last, I would say, probably couple years. The texts, or you'll be at a family function and the aunt who's like, this AG1 thing that, so to your point, it's like getting on that radar is like a whole different leap than being on the kind of Twitter radar of like, folks.
It's not fast. It's not like TikTok Shop and Big Burst, and so much of it is not fast. It is the slow. I think the operations part is sexy, but for the average person, it's not the glitz and the marketing and the podcast or whatever. But that's the work. That's the thing that stands up to the test of time, that stands up to the judgment of a customer, of liking it enough to give it to their mom or their daughter or their brother or their friend. Like that. That's why the slow, expensive work, as long as you have the cash to stomach it and the balance sheet to stomach it, it pays off. It's just rarely fast. And so you got to have a team that understands that. You've got to have a model that can handle that. You've got to have an existing machine that's really efficient while you're investing in the things that are less efficient, but they, again, they prime the future, whether that's product or channel, marketing channel, or, or commercial channel.
And we'll get you out here on this. Is there anything else we should look forward to, you want us to know coming up maybe this year, the couple months, and anywhere you would point folks?
The way we've driven our innovation is always by listening to our customers. There's some things our customers want us to make that we've just said no to because like everybody's making it, and why. And if it's a commodity and it really isn't unique and comprehensive, I don't know that it would really do us a lot of justice as a brand, even if it would make a third of our customers really happy. However, the retail expansion will continue. People will see new national retailers stacking, which is so exciting and makes me incredibly proud. We will continue to evolve in our form factors and in the versions of AG1 and AGZ. They each are a platform. and they each have permission to become different versions of themselves. And that's what our customers ask for, right? They ask for slightly different versions for slightly different need states, or they're telling us, oh, I'm stacking this on top of my AG1. Could you just put it in there for me? That's what AG1 is. If it can be one scoop, one step, and be synergistic, so nothing you put in diminishes the viability or bioavailability of what else is in it, that's the one, right? In AG1, that one thing can help people have more consistent routines. And there's a few things that people are stacking that we will stack for them very soon.
We appreciate the little tease there. We'll certainly look out for what's to come. And also make sure all links, website, social, everything is easy to find in the show notes. And Kat, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you got value from the conversation, please consider subscribing and sharing the podcast with a friend or colleague. It's a massive help. And if you want more content like this, including news and insights on the latest industry developments, subscribe to the Fitt Insider newsletter at insider.fit.co. And one more thing, you can learn more about our recruiting and consulting services at fit.co. That's FITT.co. I'll see you here next week.